Corrasion is here. It's farmable and craftable through the Echo's activities like Breach Executable and Battlegrounds missions. I got mine unlocked pretty quickly without using any deep sight resonance boosters from the Battle Pass 2. The drops in Echo's activities are maybe even excessive. I feel like I gotta run back to the helm and clear out my postmaster after every single completion. But I've got mine fully crafted, and I spent a lot of time with different perk combinations to see what felt best, and I've landed on something that feels pretty good. I think there's a couple different directions you could take this gun, but in this video I'm going to break down my thoughts on the Corrasion and whether or not it's worth your time to craft this thing. First things first, I'm not a huge lover of this new pulse rifle family overall, like the Aisha's Embrace, like the Nullify, like this one, the Corrasion. I find them a bit clunky. Not as good at range as I feel like they should be. They're kind of awkward to use up close, and in PvP they're honestly just downright bad because their damage model, they're just so uncompetitive with other primary weapon choices. So it takes a lot of extra juice to make them a threat in PvP, and Corrasion is no different there. I was getting like 5 stacks of a damage buff and still killing in an embarrassingly long amount of time while still hitting only headshots. So if you're thinking about using the Corrasion as a PvP powerhouse, I don't think that's wise. But I will say this, PvE-wise, it's a different story. There's a couple of things about this weapon that just make it work in PvE, especially, surprisingly, as a GM option, depending on the GM. This week's a little dicey because it's really, like, close quarters. But a lot of GMs have these big open arenas. I think that might be the play there. The first major factor here is that, contrary to PvP, these 2-round burst pulses actually do great damage to minor adds and orange bar enemies. They're honestly pretty good at clearing the field. You'll be one-shotting most red bars with ease, and on top of that, obviously you've got the Radiolarian pool that it leaves behind, courtesy of the Origin trait. That helps out a lot with ad clearing as well, just by putting these damaging fields around the arena on top of the good damage model it already has against rank and file opponents. So you'll be one-shotting most red bars with ease, and this season between both the Raid and the Echo's activities, you're going to be fighting a lot of Vex, like Vex Hobgoblins, and between the solid damage against ads this thing does, along with the anti-barrier pulse mod on the artifact this season, hey, that means you're sitting pretty good there. In fact, the way that I crafted mine, I can stun both barrier champions and overload champions as well with just one gun in my loadout. It's always nice to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. So the pulse does great base damage to enemies. We've got anti-barrier on it, but it's also got some decent range on it as well. Not as much as I'd like, but it does have some pretty decent reach. So you don't have to always be up in the middle of the fray to use it like you might need to be with an ad clearing weapon like a rocket sidearm or an SMG. So to me, that right there is the recipe for a great grandmaster nightfall weapon. You don't have to worry about ammo economy. It's a primary, it does great damage, it stuns champions, and you can stay further back and whittle enemies down from relative safety. That's like the winning combination on a GM weapon right there. I've never been a fan of GMs myself. I think they're incredibly boring. They just crank up enemy health way up, and then they make them hit you for more damage. So it feels like artificial difficulty to me personally. You just kind of slog through and team fire things down slowly. I just feel like I'm standing in the back and pulling the trigger over and over and over and over until a room is clear, and then I move forward. So anything that's going to help me do that faster and get me the heck out of a GM is a winner to me, and that's really where I think the Corrasion is going to shine. Let's talk about perks in the perk pool. So in the first column, you've got High Impact Reserves. It's the only one of these aggressive 2-round burst pulses that has it. It's not a bad choice for something with an 18-round magazine, honestly. You could couple it with like Focused Fury in the second column too and stack damage boosts on the bottom half of the mag. I mean, overall, I don't think having 12 to 25% extra damage is a bad thing per magazine. You've also got Perpetual Motion. This is what I ended up landing on just because I really liked the extra handling, stability, and reload speed just for being in motion, which I always am. And on top of that, I'm usually amplified with my preferred prismatic build, so those things just sort of compound and stack on one another, so it just feels really smooth and fast moving, readying, and reloading during combat. Then there's Enlightened Action, a perk I kinda like as well, but we've got 4 reload perks in the first column. It's kind of clear they want you using Volt Shot in the second column. But you've already got Perpetual Motion, now Enlightened Action, which gives faster reload speeds and handling when doing damage. There's Eddy Current, which gives you handling and reload when sprinting or amplified. And finally, there's Air Trigger for that fast in-air reload. I don't think there's really a wrong pick here. It just depends on how you like to play. But I went with Perpetual Motion just because it's 3 buffs, it's always active, and it doesn't require me to be on any particular subclass. So other than those perks, we also have Pugilist and Perfect Float in the first column. Pugilist is for you build crafters. Maybe you could find a way to incorporate like that into an arc melee focused Warlock Prismatic build with the slide melee. I don't know, it's up to you. But overall, I'd recommend a reload perk here. I went with Perpetual Motion. Unless you're just looking to ramp up the damage against rank and file opponents, then you might want to go with High Impact Reserves. Moving on to the second column, we've got Focused Fury for some more damage as a reward for hitting headshots. One for All, which might be a decent GM call for continuing to do more damage across the board to adds. Volt Shot, which is in my opinion the obvious winner here for standard PvE activities, but that's not to say there aren't other decent choices. Honestly, Volt Shot works really well when you lean into the red bar damage of this weapon anyway. You're just going to be clearing the field of rank and file opponents even more quickly with Volt Shot. Then there's Swashbuckler, which I did try as well. Frenzy is a decent pick. It's a lot less damage than One for All's buff is, but Frenzy refreshes itself and just stays up, while One for All expires and needs to be reprocced. Eye of the Storm is a hard pass for me on this weapon, and Air Assault is also a hard pass, but I did find another weapon that makes great use of that specific perk finally. More about that in a later video. All in all, I think Volt Shot is the play here, but I can totally understand why someone, especially doing something like a Grandmaster Nightfall, would want to run Frenzy or One for All as well. And the fact that you can stack a damage perk in the second column with High Impact Reserves in the first feels like a great way to just full send on the general add damage, which is really what you're going to want against GM opponents anyways. So my wrap up for this review would be that the Corrasion is a great ad clearing weapon that doesn't have to worry about ammo economy and can also help deal with multiple champions if you're using anti-barrier pulse, along with the jolting of Volt Shot for overloads. You could go with a reload perk and Volt Shot for standard PvE activities just for the ad clearing potential, or you could go with a full damage perk setup for GMs and endgame PvE content when you need that extra bump of damage to help deal with the tankier enemies. While I don't overall care for this archetype of weapon, I have to say that the Corrasion exceeded my expectations, and I'm glad that I have one. And that is the review. Thanks as always for tuning into the video. Feel free to leave a like on it, as that's the best free way to support the content right here on YouTube, and consider subscribing for additional Destiny 2 content. If you're watching this video within the first hour or two of it being live, just know that I'm probably live on Twitch right now doing raid carries with KJ Hovey. So if you want to get involved in that, come on by the Twitch channel and hop in the raffle and see if you can accompany us all the way to the Witness and kick his stupid butt. Polite reminder that I also have 2 other YouTube channels, including a variety gaming channel called True Vanguard Gaming, where I cover other games that I'm playing, as well as a whiskey channel where I taste and review whiskeys of various kinds, where we have an awesome Discord community as well. So feel free to check those out. Links will be in the description. Be warm and well fed, my friends, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.